An entire colony disappears, leaving behind only one word carved into a tree. A book no one can read sits in libraries for centuries. A signal from space arrives once and never comes again. And somehow, even when there are no answers, we keep looking. Why? Why do unsolved mysteries pull us in so deeply? Why do we click the video, or read the thread, or watch the documentary, and then lie awake thinking, but what actually happened? Maybe it is not just curiosity. Perhaps the unknown does something strange to the human mind. Humans have always been collectors of questions. Before we had science, we had myths. Before we had maps, we had monsters at the edge of them. Before we could explain storms, eclipses, disease, dreams, or death, we told stories. Not because we were foolish, but because the human brain hates an empty space. When something does not make sense, we try to fill it. And that may be why unsolved mysteries are so addictive. They are not just stories about missing people, strange objects, or unexplained events. They are stories with a gap in the middle, and our minds desperately want to close it. Psychologists sometimes describe curiosity as an information gap. Basically, curiosity appears when we realize there's something we do not know, but feel like we could know. It is the tiny space between, I have no idea, and, wait, I might be able to figure this one out. That gap creates a kind of mental itch, and unsolved mysteries are full of those itches. A footprint with no suspect, a coded manuscript with no translation, a ship found floating with no crew, a final message that does not explain enough. The mystery gives us just enough information to begin imagining answers, but not enough to feel satisfied. And that is the trap. Because if a story gives us absolutely nothing, we lose interest. But if it gives us one strange clue, one witness, one symbol, one impossible detail, suddenly our brains start working. We begin making connections. We become detectives, even if we're sitting on the sofa in pajamas. Curiosity researchers have linked this pull to the gap between what we know and what we want to know. George Loewenstein's information gap theory is one of the best-known explanations for this. But mysteries are not just interesting. They can also feel uncomfortable. That is because uncertainty is stressful. In one study from University College London, researchers found that people could feel more stress when they are uncertain about receiving a painful shock than when they knew for sure it was coming. The uncertainty itself created tension. And this makes sense. If you know what happened, your brain can file it away. Sad? Maybe. Scary? Maybe. But finished. A solved mystery has a door you can close. An unsolved mystery leaves the door slightly open. And that door is where the mind wanders. What if the missing person escaped? What if the official story is wrong? What if the strange light in the sky really was something else? What if the answer has been sitting in front of us this whole time? Uncertainty keeps the story alive. That is why "we may never know" is sometimes the most haunting sentence of all. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We look for faces in clouds, meaning in coincidences, messages in dreams, warnings in repeated numbers. We do this because pattern recognition has helped humans survive. If ancient humans heard rustling in the grass, it was safer to think, that might be a predator, than to simply ignore it. The brain is constantly asking, what does this mean? Is this connected? And should I be worried? That same ability helps us learn, imagine, and solve problems. But it also means we are drawn to mysteries because they look like puzzles. And puzzles promise order. They suggest that if we just find the missing piece, everything will make sense. That is why one strange clue can become irresistible. A carved word, a missing body, a coded letter, a final paragraph. These details feel like pieces of a hidden pattern. And once we see the pattern beginning, we want the whole picture. There is another reason we love mysteries. Humans do not just remember facts. We remember stories. A list of dates may vanish from our minds almost instantly. But a strange story? A girl who appeared from nowhere speaking an unknown language? A dancing plague that swept through a town? A queen's children disappearing inside a tower? Those stay with us. Stories help us organize chaos. They give shape to fear, grief, wonder, and confusion. Researchers who study narrative transportation describe how people can become mentally immersed in a story through attention, emotion, and imagery. In simple terms, a good story does not just give us information, it pulls us into a world. And unsolved mysteries are especially powerful because stories invite us to participate. We are not just watching what happened, we are asking what might have happened. The end is missing, so our imagination steps in. There is also something strangely safe about mysteries. A disappearance, a ghost ship, a strange signal from space. These things can be frightening. But when we experience them through a video, a book, or a story, we get to approach fear from a distance. We can feel the chill without being in danger. We can explore death, loss, betrayal, madness, and the unknown, while still knowing we are safe. In that way, mysteries are like emotional practice. They let us ask scary questions without having to live through the answers. And what happens when people vanish? Can we trust what we see? How much of history is missing? Are we alone? Why do ordinary people sometimes do unthinkable things? These are not just mystery questions. They are human questions. Maybe this is why mysteries never really go out of style. They remind us that the world is not fully explained, that history still has locked rooms, that the universe still has dark corners, that the human mind is still fragile, strange, brilliant, and unpredictable. And maybe, deep down, we do not only want answers. Maybe part of us loves the unknown because it gives us something to reach for. A solved mystery gives us closure, but an unsolved mystery gives us possibility. It says, there's still more to discover, more to question, more to imagine. And maybe that is why we keep returning to them. Not because we are morbid, not because we are nosy, but because mystery is one of the oldest human experiences. It is the feeling of standing at the edge of a dark forest, a locked door, a silent sky, and wondering what might be waiting on the other side. So the next time you find yourself falling down a rabbit hole at midnight, reading about a vanished colony, an unreadable book, or a signal from the stars, just remember, your brain is doing what human brains have always done, looking for patterns, searching for meaning, trying to turn the unknown into a story. And sometimes the question is just as powerful as the answer. Because maybe we do not chase mysteries only to solve them. Maybe we chase them because they remind us that the world is still full of wonder. And this is where our archive begins.